back like we never left. It's Double Move Sports. As always, I'm Stef Albiero, flying solo today. Alex taking a little break. We're deep in the season. He needed some time off. He's been grinding on those weekly start sits. He's been grinding in the Discord channel with me and the rest of the community. Over 270 members strong. Hit up that conversation. We've been talking about waivers. We're going to get a lot of topics today that came from some of the conversations in our Discord channel last night. So hit up that free link in the description. And look, initially this was supposed to be a crazy trade deadline reactions episode where me and Alex were going to hop on here with no prep and just react. Just initial first takes with some of this trade deadline news. We thought maybe Deshaun Watson would get moved, Allen Robinson, Odell Beckham. All these guys were talked about, Marlon Mack being another one. And really all we got was the Von Miller deal, which it's significant, but nothing crazy for us in terms of fantasy. The Chiefs are trading a guard for a tight end from the Jets. Nothing to really get excited about. And then, man, the saddest news, the news that no one wanted, Henry Ruggs in a devastating accident. Just go Google search if you want to see what happened. Just from what I've read, anywhere from 2 to 20 years in prison could be expected for Ruggs. He's not playing at least the rest of the season. And then on top of that, we have to consider punishment from the league. It's absolutely devastating. I don't even want to go this route, but for fantasy purposes, Bryan Edwards does become interesting. Hunter Renfrow gets a bump, but it's just sad to see. Sad story. First round pick, young kid, 22 years old, with a lot of promise. It's rough. So let's talk about the other biggest piece of news coming out of the weekend, and Derrick Henry landing on injured reserve with a foot injury. He's going to have surgery on his foot on Tuesday. Game was on Sunday. It's projected to be out 6 to 10 weeks. So we're in week 9 right now. So it's very realistic that they do try to bring Henry back. I'm sure Henry wants to be back, but I don't see how he's going to come back and immediately get into that 27 carry a game workload. But who knows, man? Derrick Henry has been a freak every step of the way. His whole career is so weird. Like, he's just a once in a generational type player doing insane things for his age, for his size, for his offense, and on pace, again, for over 2,100 rushing yards. Been running hyper efficiently. He's been one of the most efficient running backs in the entire NFL over the last couple of seasons. He was number 1 for Alex and I in our running back rest of season rankings. On pace for 24 touchdowns. Was seeing 3.3 targets a game. So no doubt, even with Adrian Peterson being brought in by the Titans, this offense is going to change. The identity of the Tennessee Titans is going to change. Right now, they're the number 1 team in run plays per game. Obviously, with Derrick Henry getting those 27 carries a game, you would expect that to be the case. They're 22 in pass plays per game. Obviously, that's going to go up now. But I think overall, it does make this offense far less efficient. And of course, that's what's going to happen when you're missing your best player, when you're missing the generational talent and the game plan that Derrick Henry gives you every single week if you're the Tennessee Titans. So expect more reliance on the passing game. This team has to revamp. They have to modify the entire offense, their entire game plan, the way they call plays, all their player personnel packages. It's not going to be Adrian Peterson taking on 27 carries a game. That's just not sustainable for him at age 36. He did have over 600 yards in 2020, though, and before that, 898 and just over 1,000 yards in 2018. So I got to tell you guys about a free giveaway that we're doing on the channel to give back to the DMS viewers. We've partnered with our guys at UltraGame to do a 100% free, no strings attached promo of their NFL apparel. You see me and Alex, we're always rocking athleisure clothing on the show, hoodies, sweatpants, and we're so pumped to partner with UltraGame. We have our stuff in the mail from them right now as we speak. UltraGame is the hottest, newest NFL clothing brand. They sell all their stuff on Amazon. I personally was very impressed how affordable some of their looks are for every NFL team in the league. So go get some of that fire gear for your favorite NFL team. Check the link in the description down below to their Amazon store. And remember to enter the free giveaway. We're doing this to promote UltraGame and give back to the DMS community. Check that link sometime between November 4th and November 6th. That's this Thursday through Saturday. Join the Discord. We'll remind you in there. We know even if he's just a between the tackles grinder, like Adrian Peterson will probably fall forward for yardage. He'll probably be around that high 3 to low 4 yards per carry, assuming best case scenario that he does come back ready to go in shape, which I don't imagine the Titans are going to bring back a guy if he's not ready to go for them. But expecting him to get that Derrick Henry volume is just silly. That's unprecedented volume. That's why Derrick Henry was such a cheat code in fantasy football, is because he was seeing volume we don't see running backs get. But this has to be a big bump for A.J. Brown. Right now, 12th in the NFL with a 26.3% target share, 17.2% target share in the red zone, 11th in air yard share, 7.7 targets per game, 72.7 receiving yards per game. So right there, that's an average 14-point floor. Then we do see the big boom weeks because A.J. Brown is a athletic freak, a 230-pound, 6-foot, runs a 4.49 freak athlete. He's already done crazy things. He's already broken out. We know what A.J. Brown is at this point. I don't need to tell you how good A.J. Brown's going to be with more volume, though I do think it will be less efficient volume. There's probably going to be less touchdowns with Derrick Henry out. There's probably going to be games where the passing game gets shut down for the Titans because they don't have Derrick Henry to open up play action and to let them do what they've done over the last 3 seasons since Ryan Tannehill's taken over this Tennessee Titans backfield. But A.J. Brown, look, we can get into the volume. He might see some empty calorie targets a la Calvin Ridley, which that's another big piece of news from this week. Tough scene for Ridley. Hope he comes back soon. But with A.J. Brown, expect the target volume to go up, the efficiency to drop. Those things are kind of a wash. I'm sure there's still going to be down weeks. There's still going to be boom weeks. A.J. Brown, as far as fantasy football, are you starting him or sitting him? We can adjust in our rankings a little bit later on and have that discussion. But A.J. Brown, you're starting him. And Julio Jones, you have to expect him to get some sort of bump. I know he's been really disappointing for us in fantasy this year. He's already missed 3 games, had another game where he played 50% of the snaps, another where he played 43% of the snaps. He has that hamstring issue, and that's the real bother for me from Julio Jones. I think if he's out there, you have to play him. We saw him have a decent week in week 2 against Seattle, 6 for 8 for 128 yards. On top of the health issues for Julio, which he's not a guy I'm trying to go out and acquire right now in any formats, especially not Dynasty. But even in redraft, I'd rather stay away from guys that are questionable if they're going to play any given week. And we saw that in Julio last year. He's starting that decline. He's hit that age apex. He's 32 years old. And even though he is a future Hall of Fame caliber player, there's some other factors working against him. I think at times this year, Ryan Tannehill and Julio Jones haven't looked like they've been fully in sync. And I think at a lot of times this year, you see Julio having to step into a role that he hasn't really played much in his career, which is a Z receiver role, because they're putting A.J. Brown outside, letting him play the Alpha X role, and Julio's used to playing that role for his entire career, pretty much in Atlanta, being one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL. And that's where the excitement comes from, thinking maybe Julio can get back to that, maybe he can get back to that. But we've seen, whether it's A.J. Green as of late, whether it's Julian Edelman, these older receivers, as good as a track record as they've had in the NFL, every player has their time. Julio is declining, and it's tough to see. I hope he can get 100% healthy and start producing, because I do think he can be a strong number 2 on this team, and this offense could really turn into more of a Seattle Seahawks type of offense, and the way they put up fantasy points, which is funneled volume to 2 receivers, inefficient run game, defense, if not, yuck. So Julio is exciting if he can get healthy, if he can start playing again. I expect everything to go up for him. Maybe not necessarily touchdowns, but it's not like he's been doing all that much of those anyway. Has 0 touchdowns on the season in the 5 games that he has played. Behind Julio, you have Chester Rogers, who has 22 targets, maybe in super deep leagues He's like a 1-week rental. Don't go out on the waivers and try to get him, because you also have Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who has 21 targets on the season, one less than Chester Rogers. We don't know who that true number 3 is going to be. We thought it was going to be Josh Reynolds, who's now sitting at 13 targets on the year. So not a lot of other options to get excited about. But let's talk about the running back situation, because there is, outside of Adrian Peterson, who I think will be in that 15 to 25 carry a game range, maybe 1 or 2 targets a game, I'm all in. And I've been going off on our Twitter. You can follow us there at Double Move Sport. Going off in the Discord channel. I'm in on Jeremy McNichols. He's a guy that I'm willing in a super deep league where I have no running backs. For example, I have a league where my RB2 is Michael Carter right now because I drafted ETN. A bunch of my guys are hurt. I'm willing to spend as high as 75% of my fab. I know that's aggressive, but in a 14-team league with no running backs on the waivers, if McNichols is there, you spend 70, 75% of your fab on him. And the fact that Adrian Peterson is being brought in is going to make Jeremy McNichols less valued as a waiver wire asset. I think McNichols' usage will go up, potentially a ton, because this game's going to have to rely on the passing game. At best, I think his ceiling is Chase Edmonds, which, look, it's not anything crazy. I'm not saying he's going to be a league winner. He's not an RB1, but he could be a consistent RB2 super deep flex filler. I'm probably not flexing him because I'm going to go with a wide receiver that I think has more upside as a 1-week rental. But if you need someone to plug in that RB2 spot, we're this deep in the season going into week 9. If you need a guy who's just a Chase Edmonds type value, a Nyheim Hines, J.D. McKissick, I think Jeremy McNichols could be that and potentially a little bit more. It's his 5th year in the league. Take that, for better or worse. He was a 5th-round pick, but he was a stud at Boise State in college. 1,300 rushing yards and 460 receiving yards as a 19-year-old sophomore, then beat both of those numbers again as a junior with over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Jeremy McNichols did the Derrick Henry 2,000-yard thing back in 2016. He already has a 12-target game this year. He's seeing the Joe Mixon, Darrell Henderson, 3.5 targets per game, playing about 25% of the snaps right now. I think that's going to go up. You add in the 3 targets a game that Derrick Henry vacates. I think that 11% target share that McNichols has is going to go up, because right now that's 20th amongst running backs. And I think some of that volume is going to get sent over to McNichols, where he could be in that 5.5 target range. And that's more than guys that you see like Myles Gaskin, who's a name on some shallow waiver wires right now, or Zach Moss. So the other thing I like to see from McNichols, outside of him being a strong prospect, staying on a roster this far in his career, is the efficiency. And that's something we look at all the time with rookies, especially in Dynasty. If you guys want to keep rocking with us throughout the offseason, learn about Dynasty, play Dynasty with us, hit that Discord link again. But one thing we always look for, the sign of a good player, is typically efficiency, even if it's very limited volume. With these rookies, we see them getting ramped up into offenses, especially rookies with 3rd or 4th round draft capital that aren't day one plug and play studs. You saw a little bit of that with Javonte Williams earlier in the year. We saw that with Jonathan Taylor last year. And I know I'm saying some pretty big, exciting fantasy names, and McNichols is not on that level as a player, as a prospect, based on what he's done, but he's been very, very efficient, which is great to see. He's top 10 in yards per reception, has 5.4 yards per carry on 7 carries, but he's number 2 right now in fantasy points per touch in the entire NFL, has a ridiculous 8.3 yards per touch. I know the sample size is low, but that is number 1 in the league right now. That's higher than Chase Edmonds, who's 7th. That's higher than Tony Pollard, who's 4th. That's the mold that McNichols could fit into. That's the upside outcome that McNichols could see as far as where his fantasy production is going to come from. And whichever direction this team goes for the rest of the year, whether it's Adrian Peterson getting 25 carries a game, the Titans aren't going to abandon the run game completely. And I'm willing to bet that with Julio Jones not being available or just not producing, A.J. Brown potentially getting schemed out of certain games throughout the season, I think the Titans are going to be forced into increasing Jeremy McNichols' workload on the ground, I don't think it'll be a ton, but I think something like 6 to 8 carries is in his range of outcomes every single week. So I love the upside on McNichols off the waiver wire. The one downside is Dontrell Hilliard, who was a second-string pass-catching running back in Cleveland in 2018 and 2019 that the Titans brought in. He has a less impressive college resume than McNichols. He has a less impressive NFL resume than McNichols, and was also an undrafted player. With McNichols already being with the Titans for 3 years already, I got to believe he has their trust more than Hilliard. Last of the tight ends, it's brutal. This is kind of like Indianapolis, where it's like a 2 or 3-way timeshare with the tight ends. You have Anthony Ferkser, who we did like before the season, especially before Julio was brought in. We liked Ferkser. I think in some very desperate situations, you can plug him in. But him and Jeff Swaim both have 17 targets. Michael Pruitt has another 11. So it truly is a 3-way timeshare for these tight ends. I'm trying to fade them in almost any and every format, unless it's like a super deep 16-team league. And I'm looking at like Tommy Sweeney and Tommy Tremble and like just ridiculously Brevin Jordan off the waiver wire. That's the only type of situation where I'm looking at Anthony Ferkser. But that's it for today. As always, if you guys like what we do here on the channel, a like and a sub, greatly appreciated. Keep rocking with us in the Discord channel and in the comments down below. And we'll see y'all next time. Peace.